breaking news out of Indy. Adam Schefter, what more can you tell us?
Phil, the Indianapolis Colts have made a decision about their starting quarterback, and they are going with Daniel Jones, the man they signed to a contract during the offseason that they paid $14 million to during the offseason. You heard over the weekend the Colts head coach Shane Steichen say he was looking for somebody who could command the huddle, take charge, get guys in the right position, and he clearly felt Daniel Jones was the quarterback to choose over Anthony Richardson, so much so that Shane Steichen even said that this is not a short-term trial basis type of decision. He is planning for Daniel Jones to be the Colts' QB1 for the rest of the season. Now, we'll see if Jones can play well enough to hold him to that, but that is the plan, that Daniel Jones will be the Colts starting quarterback in all of 2025.
And Chris Ballard leaned into the word competition at the Combine. Looking at the preseason in a vacuum, the Colts were a better offense with Daniel Jones on the field. Indy averaged 6.3 yards per play and 44 snaps with Jones under center. Compare that to 4.7 and 26 snaps with Anthony Richardson, though his turn was abbreviated by a dislocated finger. Head coach Shane Steichen spoke today about the choice.
You guys heard me talk about the consistency, and that's really what I was looking for. And really the operation at the line of scrimmage, the checks, the protection. Daniel did a great job doing that, and I think AR has made strides in that area. But I do feel that, he still needs to continue to develop. He knows that he still needs to develop and learn in those areas, and he knows that he's one play away.
You just got to respect the decision. I feel like he's a better fit for the team, better fit for the outcome of us winning. So you just got to respect it and just keep working. It doesn't undermine any other work I've been putting in. Doesn't say that I haven't improved. I'm proud of the improvement I've made. Shane is also proud of that. So you just got to keep stacking on that and just keep getting better.
Obviously, a big piece of why I came here and to play, to be on the field, and to be with this group. I think it's a strong group of players, as I said, and a strong group of coaches. The system. I think there's a lot of things here to be excited about. So, I'm certainly happy I made the decision I did.
We've already heard from Adam Schefter, Sam Acho, Mike Tannenbaum, with me, Phil Murphy, here for the hour. Mike, the Indiana Jones marketing campaign is officially a go. You're a former GM. What's your reaction to the Colts going in this direction for week one?
I think they made a mistake. When they drafted Anthony Richardson, Phil, they knew that he only had 13 career starts. He's only had 15 so far in the pro level. And by comparison, you look at some recent quarterbacks like Bryce Young, 27 starts, Caleb Williams, 33, Cam Ward, 57 this year. He is a work in progress. So to me, they have some nice weapons now when you think about Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, drafter Tyler Warren. But to me, if you're going to draft Anthony Richardson with all that ability, all that upside, it's not going to happen overnight. And to me, Daniel Jones, we know what he is. He's a competent quarterback, but he has struggled with turnovers. He's struggled with sacks. He's only completed one season in his career. I would go with the younger player who has much more upside.
Yeah, the difference, though, is that this was a competition, and Anthony Richardson did not win the competition. I'd argue that Daniel Jones didn't win it either. He just didn't lose it. I don't think this was a far and away win by Daniel Jones, but the coaches are saying, who do we trust more? And going back to even just that broken pinky play, right, where Anthony Richardson wasn't able to adjust to the blitz and take that sack. It was not a lot of trust that is being put forward for Anthony Richardson. Both Richardson and Jones looked inconsistent for a majority of the preseason. There were some flashes where they looked good, but neither looked consistent. Neither inspired too much confidence. Now, I will say this. The lesser turnovers when it comes to Anthony Richardson, when it comes to Daniel Jones. So I think that's why he's able to earn this spot.
Mike, you touched on it a minute ago. It's not terribly common for a team to move on not just from a first-round pick, a top-5 pick so quickly. Anthony Richardson's 23. He's younger than Bo Nix, Michael Penix, down the line, Caleb Williams. Do you think his time in Indy is over?
Not necessarily. Again, Daniel Jones has had trouble with durability himself, as Coach Steichen alluded to. So he has to be mentally ready to go because he is one snap away. And look, when somebody is that young and that experienced and so talented, I would be extremely reticent if I was Indianapolis to give up on him. We could look at Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, a recent sort of examples of quarterbacks that have been at 4 different teams until they sort of hit their potential.
And Mike, you bring up Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, 3 quarterbacks who once were high picks, who went on to become the type of quarterbacks that many expected. I think that's what the Colts are expecting right now with Daniel Jones, and it's certainly possible that Anthony Richardson will have that opportunity in the future. And the question is whether it'll be in Indianapolis, because after this season, the Colts are going to have to make a decision about whether or not to pick up the 5th-year option in Anthony Richardson's 2027 season, which would be the 5th year of his rookie contract. As it stands, if he doesn't play this year, can't imagine that they would be picking up the 5th-year option on a quarterback who hasn't played much. But if the circumstances change, Richardson could find a way to play himself into that. And if not, then he would have the opportunity to go somewhere else to try to become the latest version of those quarterbacks that you mentioned, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but the best thing that Anthony Richardson can do right now is to continue to compete. I understand that Daniel Jones has been named the starter. I understand that Shane Steichen said he doesn't plan on making any changes. But Daniel Jones' play could have a change be necessary. So Anthony Richardson, from a mental standpoint, needs to continue to get the mental reps. I understand people say that you have to let him play because he's young. Well, get those reps in practice, even if it's on scout team. Stay mentally ready and don't see this situation as a defeat, because his opportunity could come a lot sooner than expected. So he needs to be ready when that other opportunity comes again.
And ESPN's FPI has week 1 against the Dolphins as a functional coin flip, and then Indy's favored, according to ESPN Analytics, in 3 of the next 5. So early litmus tests for the Colts. More QB1 news out of Cleveland. The Browns announced yesterday Joe Flacco is going to start their opener. The 40-year-old Flacco was widely expected to win this job over Kenny Pickett and rookies Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, who have all dealt with injuries in camp. Coach Kevin Stefanski addressed this news today.
Yeah, he earned it, and I understand with the injuries how that may look. That's really not the case here. Joe performed really well. What he's able to bring to the football team, he's earned that role. I do think the guys believe in Joe, but I want to give credit to that entire group. I think those guys are working very, very hard. We have a standard for that position, regardless of who's in there. Practice, games, how we operate, what we believe in. We have a very, very high standard.
Our Browns reporter Daniel Oyefusi joins us from Browns camp in Berea, Ohio. Daniel, what does naming a QB1 and it being Joe Flacco do for this QB room at large?
Well, Phil, it means that there's clarity at the top of the depth chart for the Browns, but everything behind Flacco is still very much up in the air. Today, Coach Kevin Stefanski declined to name a backup to Flacco, and when I asked him if maybe there's an ongoing competition for that spot, he said that all these roles are not given out, they're earned. Now, keep in mind, last month, GM Andrew Berry said that it's very possible that they keep all 4 quarterbacks on the 53-man roster, and as we head into the final week of the preseason, it's important to note that Kenny Pickett returned to 11-on-11 drills today for the first time since injuring his hamstring. And Stefanski said he's very much still excited about Pickett.
And Daniel, this is a team that when Flacco was starter 2 years ago, they went 4-1 in those games, ultimately going 11-6, and 11 wins ties the franchise high going all the way back to 1986. Daniel, thank you so much. So Sam Acho, you sign one QB in free agency, you trade for another, you draft 2 more, and then ultimately go with the elder statesman of the bunch by, 10 years plus. Does the Flacco decision make sense to you?
It does, but I don't think this competition is over. I understand that Joe Flacco can run the offense very well, but here's the issue. If this Cleveland Brown team gets down in a game and it's obvious past situations, you may see what happened in the 2023 playoffs when they played the Texans, when all of a sudden they're down by a couple scores, Joe Flacco takes a couple sacks, and now he's trying to get the ball out quickly. What's going to happen is if pass rushers, like when they played the Baltimore Ravens or other teams earlier in the season, get a chance to get to the quarterback and they can't move the ball as effectively because they're down in a game, Cleveland may look to go to a more mobile quarterback, and that could be both Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel. So I understand that Joe Flacco has been named the starter, but I believe that this competition is far from over.
Well, it's not any surprise about who's starting in Cleveland. I think the real quarterback drama in Cleveland is who's going to be the backup quarterback in Cleveland. Everybody always expected that Joe Flacco would be the starting quarterback from the moment he signed with the Cleveland Browns back in April. And we can just prove that by pointing to the fact that Joe Flacco didn't play it down in a preseason game this summer, and he still was named the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And yet, The real interesting part of this is, what do the Browns do at the backup quarterback position? Do they go with Dillon Gabriel? Do they go with Shedeur Sanders? On their current depth chart, for whatever that's worth, and maybe they haven't changed it at all this summer, they have Joe Flacco listed as the starter. They have Kenny Pickett listed as second string. They have Dillon Gabriel listed as third string, and they have Shedeur Sanders listed as fourth string. Let's see what happens in the final preseason game, where I'm sure they'll give an opportunity to Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders to get a better idea of who might be higher on the depth chart come the start of the regular season.
Mike, you heard Adam's analysis. There's intrigue and potential promise elsewhere in this depth chart. Kevin Stefanski won't name QB2. I'm going to ask you to name QB2. How should the Browns approach this?
I would give each player a half. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, let them go compete this weekend. They both look good, but they both were hurt. So it's been an odd situation because Joe Flacco, as Adam alluded to, didn't play it down, but he was the only one of the four quarterbacks that wasn't hurt. I was actually really encouraged by both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when they were out there against the Panthers and the Eagles. Look, Dillon Gabriel had the 2 turnovers in fairness here, but I thought they were both encouraging. Let them go and compete, and let them compete every week. That's how you're going to get the best out of both of them.
Yeah, Sanders was cleaner, but Gabriel had more yards per attempt, 7.9 for him as opposed to 6 even for Sanders. But these are the situations you create when you draft 2 QBs 50 picks apart. Hey, we're just getting started on NFL Live. Things are heating up in Tennessee, where rookie Cam Ward found himself in a camp scuffle. Is friendly fire a red flag for the Titans, or will the rookie QB just prove he can stand on business? Plus, tensions are high in Dallas between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons. Could the two sides potentially be headed for a divorce? Adam weighs in with what he Disney Plus. Time to read and react to some NFL news. Our number one topic, the home of the number 1 overall pick. Things got Nashville hot, according to our Teron Davenport. Quote, Jeffrey Simmons and Cam Ward got into it. Ward hit Ridley for a touchdown. Ward was going to. Calvin Ridley walked by Simmons, who put his hands on him, and it caused a scuffle. Simmons was running hot from the previous play. Sam Acho, longtime linebacker, any issue with this kind of energy at practice, especially with a number 1 overall pick at QB?
I love it. I love this kind of energy. Why? Because Jeffrey Simmons doesn't want to go 3-14 anymore. He understands that if he wants to win, this is a quarterback-driven league. And so if you're the quarterback, the number 1 overall pick, you want to be the dog. You got to beat the dog. You want to be the best. You got to beat the best. You want to be the leader of your team. Jeffrey Simmons is one of those leaders. So I think this is a situation where mutual respect can be gained and garnered for both individuals. I don't see Cam Ward as an individual to back down. So I love the fact that he's stepping up to one of the leaders of the Titans.
Yeah, and maybe, ignorance is bliss with the franchise. They've never drafted a quarterback first overall, so you let him play and see if that energy can translate to the field. There's a former number 1 pick under center in Tampa, but some forced changes around that offense, around Baker Mayfield. It was announced today, second-year wide receiver Jalen McMillan will go to IR with the neck injury, missing a minimum of 4 games for an offense already down a wide receiver, Chris Godwin, and left tackle Tristan Wirfs. They also have a new OC, Liam Cohen, taking the Jags head coaching job, and they just used a first-round pick on receiver Emeka Egbuka, number 19 overall, who's now in line to get even more reps with McMillan and Chris Godwin out. Mike T, you've done some roster gymnastics before in your day as a longtime GM. What is your level of concern with these injuries and that this offense will now take a step back this season? Minimal, because we're not focusing on what they added. First of all, in the great history of Ohio State, their all-time leading receiver is none other than Emeka Egbuka. What a great draft choice by Jason Licht, the general manager of the Buccaneers. Draft a position of strength, so when you have a couple injuries, you can withstand it. To go out there on opening day with him, Cade Otton, and pending Hall of Famer Mike Evans is really the envy of most teams. Baker Mayfield had a great year last year, 41 touchdown passes. They'll be fine. I work with Josh Grizzard, their new offensive coordinator, bright young coach. I don't think these are ideal situations, but they'll overcome them. And in truth, something of a loaded question, asking if they're going to take a step back. The 41 touchdowns for which Mayfield threw last season, only Joe Burrow had more in the NFL. In Dallas, no update to the soap opera when it comes to a long-term extension for Micah Parsons, but Joe Buck and Troy Aikman addressed that during last night's Monday Night Football telecast.
The other side is, if you're Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, how do you try to win or be great without Micah Parsons?
Well, you can't be. That's his leverage. His leverage is they can't win without him. Certainly worth every penny that he's ultimately going to get paid. The longer it goes, the more money he's going to make. So I wouldn't stress too much if I was him, but that essentially is the only leverage. Now, what are the Cowboys going to do? Do you think I know the answer to that? I don't think anybody knows what Jerry's ever going to do.
Adam Schefter, this morning on Sportsmanlike Radio, you used the term divorce when talking about Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and Dallas. Eyebrows were raised, blood pressure was raised. What did you mean by that?
Well, Phil, essentially the two sides have not had any contract negotiations since late March or early April. It certainly sounds like the Cowboys are disappointed in Micah. It sounds like Micah is disappointed with the Cowboys. And Micah's request to be traded, which he put out on social media a few weeks ago, spoke for itself. He laid it all out. Since then, you would have thought that Dallas would have gone to him to try to appease him to do a deal. Instead, all we heard about was Jerry saying he doesn't know if Micah will play in the opener due to his back tightness, and there's been zero contract discussion since then. And I want to correct Troy Aikman there, the rare occasion that I will ever have the opportunity to do that. He was talking about the leverage that Micah would have. The leverage that Micah has is withholding his services, is saying that his back is tight all year long and not playing in the opener and not playing beyond that. And then after this year, then they would be in a situation where the Cowboys aren't going to let Micah walk. They would use the franchise tag on him. And if it continues to be the way it has been this summer and this offseason, you would think the two sides would look to divorce at that point in time. Now, there's time that the two sides can still salvage it before the regular season begins 2 weeks from Thursday night. But up until now, there has been zero indication that that will happen. If they change their minds, sure, they can get something done. But it certainly doesn't feel that way, and it certainly feels a lot different than the way it did with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb when they got their deals done at a similar time last year.
That is a huge window of time. We're talking franchise tag 2026, and we're talking first game of the NFL season in 16 days. Longtime GM Mike Tannenbaum, what do you make of the state of the marital union in North Texas?
Well, look, it's bumpy right now, but we have 36 years of data, which is Jerry Jones, outside of Herschel Walker, doesn't like to move on from stars. So I think, listen, Adam knows what's going on better than anybody, but to me, the most likely outcome is nothing happens, meaning no extension, no trade, and then we just have to wait and see what Micah Parsons does, meaning does he pull a Jalen Ramsey and hold in, which is what happened in Jacksonville where he eventually forces a trade. I just think we're weeks, if not months away, because I think Dallas would be extraordinarily patient if Micah Parsons withholds services.
Well, Mike, who is Micah Parsons' agent?
David Mulugheta.
Who is Jalen Ramsey's agent?
David Mulugheta.
Yeah, same agent. That's interesting how that happens. And again, there is a lot of time for this to play out. But the way it's tracking, I think it's safe to say that it doesn't look like these two sides are going to be reaching agreement on a deal anytime soon, if at all. And right now, yes, things can change, but there's been zero dialogue, not some, zero. And that tells you that Dallas right now, again, is not moving in that direction. Mike is not happy. We heard his trade request. And I think that these two sides will be dealing with it all season before the franchise tag and a potential trade come into play next year. That's if they even get to that point.
Something that's not up for debate. This is an elite, extremely important player. 13 games last season, even with Parsons. Dallas needs him. They finished second for bottom in points per game allowed. Still ahead, Daniel Jones has been named Colts Week 1 starter over recent number 4 overall pick Anthony Richardson. We hear from head coach Shane Steichen on why he made the choice, as well as a
situation because Joe Flacco, as Adam alluded to, didn't play it down, but he was the only one of the 4 quarterbacks that wasn't hurt. I was actually really encouraged by both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when they were out there against the Panthers and the Eagles. Look, Dillon Gabriel had the 2 turnovers in fairness here, but I thought they were both encouraging. Let them go and compete, and let them compete every week. That's how you're going to get the best out of both of them.
Yeah, Sanders was cleaner, but Gabriel had more yards per attempt, 7.9 for him as opposed to 6 even for Sanders. But these are the situations you create when you draft 2 QBs 50 picks apart. Hey, we're just getting started on NFL Live. Things are heating up in Tennessee, where rookie Cam Ward found himself in a camp scuffle Is friendly fire a red flag for the Titans, or will the rookie QB just prove he can stand on business? Plus, tensions are high in Dallas between Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons. Could the two sides potentially be headed for a divorce? Adam weighs in with what he...
I think, that year they went to the playoffs, he was one game away from an NFC championship game and making the right decisions, and his completion percentage, I think that keeps us on track. So that's a big part of it. Obviously, you want to see the big plays. I think Daniel Jones is capable of that as well.
Stephen Holder covers the Colts for us. You've been all over this all offseason. Heck, at the Combine, we were talking about GM Chris Ballard kind of foreshadowing this, leaning into the word competition. What ultimately led to this being the way forward, and what are the implications for both of these quarterbacks?
Phil, you're right. That word competition has defined the offseason for the Colts. When the subject of quarterback comes up, they needed more out of Anthony Richardson. They thought competition would perhaps bring that out of him. And they had a very spirited competition. Ultimately, for Shane Steichen, it's a lot of the things he just outlined in that clip, which is some of the stuff that we can't see. It's not the big arm or the athleticism that we see from Anthony Richardson. It's also the management of the huddle and the small things at the line of scrimmage that maybe are intricacies to us, but very pivotal to the outcome of each and every play. So for the two players here, I think this is going to be something of a defining moment. You have Daniel Jones, who now, this is the culmination for him of a great decision, in fact. Back in March, he bet on himself to come here on a one-year deal and win this job. He has won it. And for Anthony Richardson, this leaves numerous questions. He was asked to compete. He did that. He went toe-to-toe with Daniel Jones. He lost this battle and perhaps will not play this season. That's a daunting thing to accept for a 23-year-old, one-time franchise quarterback, or thought to be a franchise quarterback.
And now all eyes in Indy can shift to that Week 1 opener against the Dolphins. Colts will breathe a lot easier if Daniel Jones is cleaner out of the gates. In his career in season openers, he's just 1-4, losing the last two by a combined 68-6. Stephen, thank you. Supporting the case for Jones over Richardson. I mean, it's been a tough go for the 23-year-old among QBs with at least 15 starts. His passer rating and completion percentage both rank dead last since he was drafted. His completion percentage actually the worst of any QBs with 15 starts this millennium. And his touchdown to interception ratio ahead of only Daniel Jones in the last 2 years. How about that? Mike Tannenbaum back with us, grading the approach the Colts took to all of this. Mike, did Indy do enough to give Richardson a real shot at succeeding?
I think so. When you look at their skill players, first of all, Alex Pierce led the NFL in yards per catch as a receiver. They have Michael Pittman, a big physical receiver, and obviously, Phil, a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. Look, was the offensive line perfect? No. Was the tight end situation perfect? No. But no situation is perfect, right? We saw Patrick Mahomes deal with a left guard, left tackle. The key to me was knowing that he was inexperienced. Let's pick a lane and say, hey, we are going to go until glass breaks. He is our starter. We know it was only 13 games in college, which is way less than most quarterbacks. And let's just try to get him a little bit better as we go on. So I think there was enough of supporting cast, but I think it was a lack of patience ultimately that did in Anthony Richardson.
And this will now make 8 different Week 1 starters in Indy in the last 9 seasons. In probably related news, the Colts 1-13-1 in season openers since 2010. That's the worst in the NFL. Richardson, no, not the only QB with ample motivation. How about last year's #1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, trying to acclimate to life with a new head coach and new play caller? Courtney Cronin covers the Bears for us. Court, what does Williams need to prove this year in Chicago?
Hey, Phil, coming off his strong preseason debut under Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams feels like he knows this offense, knows what's expected of him, and that now it's time to show results. Both Williams and Johnson acknowledge that there have been days in training camp where it feels like the quarterback took 2 steps forward and then 1 step back. And for Williams, it's keeping that growth mindset in the forefront, knowing that there are likely to be other hurdles he'll encounter in season as he aims to master this offense. And he'll get there in a number of different ways, doing things like using the cadence as a weapon, getting more comfortable playing under center, and helping the Bears become a more explosive unit. The goal, the former #1 overall pick set for himself this season and beyond, be able to handle everything Johnson expects him to.
Sam Acho, you used to ply your trade In Chicago, what does Caleb need to show in year 2?
He needs to show leadership in year 2. The arm talent is there. The coaching staff is there. The receivers, the tight ends are there. But he needs to show leadership when things don't go his way. Last year got sacked 68 times, and so often the demeanor was this demeanor of dejection. He needs to be able to inspire his team when things aren't going his way.
Williams finished last season with the 5th lowest total QBR, a stat pulled way down by his sack numbers. How about another former number 1 overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, entering year 5 with a 3rd new head coach and a contract only behind Dak Prescott in average annual value. Mike DiRocco covers the Jags for us. D-Rock, what does Lawrence need to prove this fall?
Thanks, Bill. It starts with staying healthy. Lawrence has missed 8 games over the past 2 seasons because of 6 injuries, including 2 concussions. Beyond that, Liam Cohen has cleaned up and changed Lawrence's footwork in order to put him in better position to go through his progressions and make quick, decisive throws. Does that mean that Lawrence is going to set career highs in passing yards and passing touchdowns the way Baker Mayfield did last season in Tampa with Cohen as his offensive coordinator? No, but it could result in the consistency that has eluded Lawrence throughout his career. So how's it going so far? I asked someone inside the organization how they would describe the way Trevor Lawrence has looked through training camp and 2 preseason games. I got a 2-word response: bleeping amazing.
we appreciate the abbreviation, Mike. Mike T. Lawrence, just 25. Does his play get enough attention?
No, it doesn't. He needs to play a lot better. Michael used one word, consistency. I'll use another one, which is fundamentals. For somebody as talented as he is, he was at the bottom of the league in completion percentage at 60%. He was 29th in completion above expectations, meaning he is not delivering the ball consistently, accurately, something that is inexcusable for somebody that is as talented as Trevor Lawrence. Before he's great, he has to be good, and that starts with the fundamentals.
And you think if he were in a larger market than Jacksonville, the 22 wins and 60 starts would also get more scrutiny as well. Hey, winning games was the problem early last season for the Bengals. In fact, it's been a problem early each of the last 3 years. Joe Burrow getting Bengals won, but Joe Burrow, what did you take away from that game?
Some good learning experiences in the couple drives that we've had. Got some fumbles out of the way, so that was good. Yeah, those are just incredibly valuable reps that usually work out those kinks in the first couple weeks of the regular season, and we've worked them out last 2 weeks.
Mike, Zach Taylor has made it known he's going to try and do something different this summer. Some more preseason snaps, perhaps. Team started 0-3, 0-2, 0-2 the last 3 seasons. Are you okay with how they've approached this preseason to try and dispel that?
Yeah, for the most part, I thought it was really smart. I give Zach Taylor a lot of credit. The easy thing would have been to say, hey, we're not going to play Joe Burrow, but he did. And he got some meaningful work. Where I got a little concerned was on that last drive. T. Higgins and Jamal.
That they won a lot last year, November, December, but they dug such a deep hole in September, it didn't really matter. As for that Bengals defense, rightly scrutinized last season, Coach Taylor said he was happy with the unit last night despite allowing 185 yards on the ground.
I feel really excited about where our defense is at. We go against them every day. It's tough. Give them so far in these 2 games. So those are things that we don't want and we can avoid, and whatever the call is, we should do a better job at that. But at the same time, I know what I see every day in practice, and I'm excited about the direction of our defense.
Sam Acho, linebacker fraternity, are you optimistic about what you saw on the field from the Bengals last night?
No, I'm not even close to as optimistic as Zach Taylor was. So you look at what they did early on in the game, it was porous. The defense gave up huge lanes, not only down the middle, but on the outside of the defense. Poor tackling became an issue as well. I understand you have a new defensive coordinator in Al Golden who came from Notre Dame, not having Trey Hendrickson. This is the fundamentals of football. Tackling is like number 1. They're not doing it. And so for me, this could be another struggle of a season for the Cincinnati Bengals if they don't get their defense situated. They were in the bottom third of the NFL last season. Didn't look too much better last night.
Well, they're still without Trey Hendrickson, and it's possible they could be without Trey Hendrickson for a while because the two sides continue to be in agreement on the length of a contract, on the average annual salary of the contract, but nowhere near close to an agreement on the guaranteed money in the contract. That is the issue right now. It continues to be the hang-up in any discussions and negotiations. And so Trey Hendrickson has been open about the fact that he is not going to play this season on his existing contract. Mike Brown has said he doesn't expect Trey Hendrickson to play this season on his existing contract. The regular season opener is about 2.5 weeks away. So if they can't get a deal done, and they haven't made any progress so far, what does Trey Hendrickson then wind up doing? He's adamant he won't play, and if he won't play, then this defense will have to get by without him somehow.
You know, earlier we talked about RC's tweet from yesterday, Phil, about, hey, Trey Hendrickson's going to get paid before the end of the game. If I'm the Bengals, I bent a little bit on Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. He's led the NFL in sacks over the last 2 years. With Trey Hendrickson, you have a meaningful chance to have a great year. Without him, we saw what happened last night. I just can't imagine how they're going to be functional on defense without him.
Led the NFL in sacks, and it's not like this is a team like the Broncos where you have multiple 10-sack guys. Hendrickson himself accounted for 49% of the Bengals sacks last season. Coming up, Brian Daboll has said Russell Wilson is the Giants starter, but Jackson Dart hasn't been far off the bullseye himself in the preseason, so much so that someone here thinks the year one player should be QB1 in the Big Apple. Find out who and why next.
You've earned